The mural!
El Circlo is named that because the time flow there is circular. The town is stuck in a time loop, unbeknown to everyone besides you. This is presented really elegantly, because when you first arrive, everyone tells you to wait until the next day for the opening of a bridge. And there's a lot of NPCs. The only other noteworthy occurrence is a girl who works at the inn and twisted her ankle when she fell down the stairs this morning. Having to spend a night is a common flag to progress the story, so you do just that. But when you wake up the next day, the girl from earlier once again trips, except this time you catch her. You never saw that scene before, so there might just be another reason, and other NPCs talk about how she constantly falls, so there could still be other explanations. And the innkeepers seem to remember you, but when you go outside, the NPCs all have the same dialogue and there's even repeating events. But there have been repeating events or NPC dialogue not changing before. For example, there's this recurring scene where a priest gets robbed in the Old Waits Abbey scenario. That one is to show that it's futile to try to solve crime on a personal level, that it will always come back and the only way to get rid of it for good is to get rid of the source, which are the monsters. But eventually you piece together that there is in fact a time loop going on, at least when you go to the bridge where the next day has in fact not started. In most stories where a time loop appears, it's the one defining thing. But here it's not even the focus of the story. The focus lies on El Maestro Pomposo, a universal genius, an artist, architect, inventor and more, who is beyond the forefront of each field, and his architecture at least is inspired by Antoni Gaudí. He's extremely arrogant, but unlike Maribel, he has an actual reason to be. Unbeknown to him and everyone besides you, the time loop exists because monsters have either given magical properties to his creations or are more likely distorting the magic in his creations. I lean towards the second interpretation because the text implies the sands of time couldn't have worked by themselves. Pomposo later builds a dungeon in the present with man-made monsters among other things, so his creations later in life were magical. And as explained in the Faraday video, a part of the divine spark or genius which El Maestro has plenty of lives on in each creation in the Dragon Quest VII world. Or Godemir would be capable of creating this time loop by himself. He's frozen plenty of islands in time, but I think the point is to make it reflect misinterpretation and therefore mispresentation and misuse of art. Pomposo's clock tower can stop time now, and you can then, while time is stopped, enter his painting of the clock tower, in which the mechanism that caused the time loop resides. None of these features were intended by Pomposo. The monsters just took it upon themselves to twist his art into something useful to them. This is similar to the theme of historical distortion that so many events touch on. Further, Dragon Quest VII mocks attempts at trying to figure out an artist's intent, and overall the message seems to again echo something I've mentioned in the Faraday video. What's important isn't the thought behind the creation, but the creation as it actually is. He didn't intend the painting to be problematic, but that doesn't matter and everyone's better off with the problematic part removed. Even if here you save the day by restoring authenticity to the painting, since you destroy the hourglass with the sands of time which are the element the monsters added. So the next day comes and the bridge Pomposo came up with is finally built and acts as a monument to his genius. He was slowly becoming self-aware of the time loop even while trapped inside it. He created a whole dungeon filled with monsters and countless nonsensical contraptions. He created the painting which arguably serves as a glimpse into his mind, and he seems to be at least aware of some magical attributes in the clock tower, and has ideas about the way time works in the Dragon Quest VII world, which is to say an absolute mess. Or more precisely, time in the Dragon Quest VII world is relative, to each island but also to each person, since you for example aren't stuck in a time loop and Pomposo is only partly stuck. What I'm saying is that so far Pomposo's the greatest creator you've met on your adventure, and in genius he's only second to, as he admits on his grave, your party. You of course know about greater secrets of the world that are even unknown to geniuses among geniuses. But back to the event, which unfortunately keeps going for a little bit. The next scene where you celebrate the grand opening of the bridge doesn't exist. Instead you hear a line about how Pomposo is apparently a deadbeat dad and abandoned his child. You know that the guy's arrogant and unbearable, but there's hope for him since after his apprentice runs out on him, it's implied that he goes on to take better care of his daughter and at least painted a happy family and calls that painting his greatest treasure. And now you finally cross the bridge, only to be met with Green Thumb Garden. This hurts my brain because now there's not just one, but two versions of Green Thumb Garden locked away in the past at different points in its history. I have no idea why this event had to be the one to get this treatment, but it basically serves to explain a few holes that were left between the past and the present events, taking place 30 years after the first visit. The girl that everyone was in love with, Lavender, went through with the marriage that she was debt-trapped into, then later in life ran away to live in a convent. Meanwhile, the guy that she was in love with who ran away built a town right below the convent. So she spent every day looking down on him, and it's framed as a tragedy that the guy she loved only finds out 6 months after her death that she not only ran away too, but thought about him every day looking down on the town he built. And I don't like that Lavender isn't written as a sentient person but instead as an idea here. I thought this was supposed to be the most human soap opera stuff, but now it's even lost that humanity. There's many other small things that are barely worth mentioning. The one guy adopted a child called Lavender and it's emphasized that he only adopted after learning that her name was Lavender. The other guy that originally coerced Lavender into the marriage became another deadbeat dad and has a bad work moral and now unenthusiastically runs away with the maid who was always in love with him, but only after their plans of poisoning her current husband fail. At least this has some nice foreshadowing. And I'd like to point out the husband who has 3 character traits. He's rich, he's slowly dying of poison, and he really likes home-cooked meals from his wife. He's honestly the best part. What I want to leave you with isn't Green Thumb Garden though, but instead a question Ruff asks after saving El Circlo. I personally believe that being stuck in this one day would be the same as death, since they would never experience anything new. Even another day at a 9 to 5 is another experience, even if it's the exact same as another day. Recognizing that fact in itself is a new experience. This of course isn't equatable with anything in real life beyond maybe a coma. The science isn't clear on whether some coma patients dream, but if so, even the dreams that people have would be the same in a time loop, making them experience less than a coma patient. But I could totally see people arguing that you're forcing the people into a world that is soon to be taken over by the Demon King, having to age and eventually die, and that you should rather keep them looping forever in a state of ignorant bliss. The game itself in the Faraday event said that this was better for Ellie, even if of course there's more nuance to that. Opening up a question like that is way above the pay grade for Ruff's party chat of all things. Really impressive stuff.